All right. So our next section is understanding mood disorders. Let's like to take a look at where do these mood disorders come from? Why are mood disorders so pervasive and more common among the young and especially among young women? Okay. Why does depression have so many symptoms? There are emotional symptoms, there are cognitive symptoms, there are physical symptoms, and there are behavioral symptoms. So depression really is a complete both psychological and physical illness. Okay, now understanding mood disorders, we can explain can we explain why does depression often go away on its own? Why do we suffer from a depressive period and it just kind of alleviates itself? What is the course of development of reactive depression? Often time heals a mood disorder, especially when the mood disorder is in reaction to a stressful event. However, a significant portion of the population with major depressive disorder do not automatically or easily get better with time. So, suicide and self injury is also a really important piece to mention with depression. Every year, 1 million people commit suicide, giving up on the process of trying to cope and improve with their emotional well being. And this can happen when people feel frustrated, trapped, isolated, ineffective, and see no end to these feelings. Now, non suicidal self injury has other functions such as sending a message or self punishment. Okay, so it's important to remember that not everybody who is depressed is suicidal, but a large proportion of the people who are suicidal and self injure are also depressed. Now, how we understand mood disorders, the biological aspects of explanations include evolutionary, genetic, and brain body, and the social cognitive aspects and explanations include negative thoughts and negative mood, explanatory style, and the vicious cycle. So, what does the evolutionary perspective on biology of depression say? Well, basically, depression in its mild or non disordered forms may have served as a survival value. Under stress, depression is social emotional hibernation, and it allows humans to conserve energy, avoid conflicts and other risks, and let go of unattainable goals, and take time to contemplate. So perhaps from an evolutionary point of view, depression was a way of kind of holding us back and making us really think about our actions and kind of as a self-protective mechanism. Now, what about the biology of depression? Now, the genetics say that there is DNA linkage analysis reveals that there is a depressed gene regions, and adoptions and twin heritability studies do tell us that there is some genetic linkage. Now, bipolar disorder and schizophrenia have a very high heritability, okay, followed by anorexia and then major depressive disorder after that, with generalized anxiety disorder below that, okay? So we do know that there is some genetic linkage with depression. Now, in terms of the brain activity is diminished in depression and increased in mania. So if we take a look down here, you can see somebody who's when they are in their depressed state, okay, versus their manic state, okay, versus their depressed state again. And again, remember we talked about how after every manic state, the lows get a little lower. So if you see there's a slight increased activity here, but that increased activity decreases there, and we see an increase in the kind of the purples. Okay, there. So, the brain structure, there are smaller frontal lobes in depression and fewer axons in bipolar disorder. Okay, and then brain cell communication, how do the neurotransmitters? Well, there's more norepinephrine, the arousing, in mania and less in depression. Okay, so we do know that the brain changes when you are suffering from depression and bipolar disorder. And then reduced serotonin. So it's really important to remember that low serotonin levels is what is a cause of depression. Now, how do we prevent or reduce depression? Using the knowledge of our biology kind of on depression. Well, adjust neurotransmitters with medication. This is what depression medications do, is they try to adjust the levels of neurotransmitters. Increase serotonin levels with exercise. We know that exercise is huge when it comes to preventing and reducing depression. And reducing brain inflammation with a healthy diet, especially olive and fish oils. So diet definitely plays a role as well. Okay, and then preventing excessive alcohol use. Alcohol is a depressant, okay, and we know that alcohol use can contribute to the intensity of depression. Now, in terms of the social cognitive perspective, now we know depression is associated with low self-esteem, okay, learned helplessness, okay, and rumination, stuck focusing on what's bad. Okay, so in terms of the social cognitive perspective, we want to take a look at all of these areas and seeing if there's a way that we can adjust these. Okay, we also know that there are depressive explanatory styles, okay, such as how we analyze bad news. So let's say you break up with a romantic partner. That's your problematic event. Now, there are assumptions about the problem. The problem is it stable, meaning I'll never get over this, or temporary? This is hard to take, but I will get through this, okay? The problem is global or specific. I miss my partner, but thankfully I have friends and family versus without my partner, I can't do anything right, okay? Is it internal or external? It takes two to make a relationship work and it wasn't meant to be versus our breakup was all my fault. Okay, and the mood that goes along with these views. Okay, if you have this stable global internal kind of explanatory style, that's when we might possibly see depression. But if you have the temporary specific external explanatory style, you're going to have a much more successful coping. Now, depression is a vicious cycle, though, okay? We do know that stressful experiences can cause negative explanatory styles, which can cause depressed mood, which can cause cognitive and behavioral changes, which can further cause stressful experiences, which then causes further negatory explanatory styles. So we do know that depressed mood may develop when a person with a negative outlook experiences repeated stress, and that just kind of continues this cycle. All right. We're going to wrap up mood disorders here and move on to schizophrenia next.